Excuse me, Mr. DJ.
Hey, check this out. We got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, it's the Midday Market Report with Jeff Dawson.
Good afternoon, sports fans from all around the globe. I'm your host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is your Midday Market Report for October 5th, 2022. As Eminem said, guess who's back? Back again. Guess who's back? Tell a friend. He's back! 2 weeks, and I swear to God, it felt like 2 months. You know, we're like Abbott and Costello here, Bonnie and Clyde, whatever you want to call us, Bird and Magic. It's been a couple weeks. Life gets busy. You kind of need power, too, to put on the show, and I can't wait to hear that story. Our weekly trip across the border, the one, the only, Mr. Andrew McInnis.
Hello, Mr. Dawson.
Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good. It is great to be back with you. And I'll tell you what, life still remains a little mysterious, a little weird for me. I'm not in my usual location, as you can tell. As I got power back after our storm, my internet wasn't working. And so the router was working, but the internet wasn't. So I said, you know what? Screw it. We were visiting some family over the weekend, and I just stayed. So the girlfriend and the puppy went back home, and I said, I'm just staying here because I need to have internet. I need to do shows, research. I mean, there's so many sports going on right now. So I hope everything is okay on your end or on my end right now. But we're creatures of habit. We're creatures of routine. It's good to be back here with you.
You know, it's so funny. I tell the story all the time. I got introduced to the sports wagering business in the late 80s, early 90s with two services out of Boston. And there was no internet. There was no cell phones. There was no crawlers or tickers giving you updated lines and odds, never mind scores. And it was 5 newspapers a day. And it was hoping that you got up in the morning and got to your local corner store and they had the West Coast games, and then introduced the 900 numbers. So you would call a 900 number and they give you updates every 10 minutes and in between, 5 ads for picks and whatever. So where we are today now without internet, we're lost.
I'll tell you, last week was a rough week because I'm doing work at coffee shops, right, where there's internet, and then at night I want to watch the games, but you can only go to so many restaurants or sports bars before you're tired of eating out, or and once you're at the bar you have to have a couple drinks. You're already there, you might as well have a couple drinks. So then it's a Tuesday night and you're watching the Jays in a preseason NHL game, and you're having some. So it's been a wild couple weeks, but you know what? It's been nice because in the midst of all that going on, I've been able to stay so busy. There's so much going on. CFL playoffs are knocking on the doorstep right now. It feels like you and I just started talking CFL. The summer has come and it's gone, and now we've got NHL. I've got some season point total picks for today and some futures. So looking forward to that.
What kind? Am I crazy to say? Was it like a massive snowstorm, or was it just wind and rain, or?
It was just a hurricane. Yeah, it was just wind and rain. We didn't even get that much rain really. It was just a ridiculous amount of wind. Like I walked down the street and I saw 2 people had a tree laying down on their cars. So we're lucky because our property was fine. But the worst part, Jeff, was walking around and taking the dog for walks at night and seeing people a street over have power. that is really frustrating, right? Because it's just like everybody's on a different grid, everybody's on, so anyway, am I going crazy, or is my light flickering? Does it look like there's like my screen? Do you see that on your end, on my end?
I don't see it.
No. Okay. It's just for me. Good. Happy. But how's everything going with you?
Things are okay. Life is busy. I'm in the midst. I'm like right there of getting the new office, studio, retail store opened up. Still waiting for the carpet to be laid. The TVs are up. The last of the painting and the staining is going to get done today. Bring in the furniture this weekend. Going to get all the pictures and everything up. So I'm hoping by the first of the week we'll be up and running on that aspect. So I've been bouncing back and forth myself. I was going to do a follow-up to you. We've been blessed where we live. The home that we bought 16 and a half years ago. We're set up high and we're right next to two schools, and there was a small police station right down the road. We never lost power, knock on wood, but we had 3 or 4 back-to-back summers where we were losing power. And we're always saying we're going to get a generator, and we never get a generator.
Mm-hmm.
So question to you is, especially being in Canada, and I assume you get some real rough storms. I don't know how the power is. Has the bride suggested, or have you suggested potentially getting a generator?
Well, the truth be told, like, so I've told you before, but we live like 2 hours outside of our capital, right? Outside of Halifax. So being in a small town has made it a lot worse, right? So I mean, it's fine now. Like, I'm pretty sure my internet's going to be, I chose kind of just to stay here with family, just because it's easier and it's reliable at, the connections and stuff. But if we were in Halifax still, that wouldn't even be a discussion, right? All my friends had power back a day or two later. I'll put it this way. If we were planning on staying any longer than maybe another year there, 6 months to a year, then we would definitely look for one. It's funny you say that though, because you'd walk around at night or even during the day, and you would just hear them just humming, just buzzing like it. And you go to gas stations to fill up your car, and it would just be lineups on lineups, everyone trying to get it done. All I cared about was watching sports, That's all I wanted to do, was do my research and watch games. So I will say, Jeff, it kind of reminded me, because I used to be a big coffee shop guy. I used to go there all the time. Before I started doing more shows and I wasn't doing as many, I would have time to just, start my morning, do some stuff at home, and then go to a coffee shop. And I would spend like 3.5 hours there. And I'm telling you, sometimes the work you get done there out of the house, at least for me, it's just, to me, like, it might look like more distractions, but for me, it's less distractions if you're out of the house, like, I'm here for a reason. I'm here to get some work done. Let's grab a coffee, put the headphones in, and get some work done. Versus if you're at home, like, there's so many things near you. You can grab a snack. You can do this. You can do whatever. So I have liked that aspect, but watching the games has been super tough. I do want to let you know, before we get into some picks and stuff like that, November 17th, I'm coming to the Mass area. So I'm really excited about that. But guess who I'm seeing? Of all teams, guess who I'm seeing? The New York Jets. That's the team I'm seeing. That was not planned that way. We ended up, last time I was here, we saw the Dallas Cowboys. This time we're seeing the New York Jets. So we might literally see 2 of the worst teams in 2 different sports: the Blackhawks in hockey and the Jets in football. So we'll take what we can get, though. It'll be a fun time.
Well, I'm on record in July with Julian Edlow. I think it was plus 1,400 on DraftKings. It was the exact standing for the AFC East. And I had Buffalo, Miami, Jets, and Patriots. Patriots finished last. So I'm rooting for you and the Jets that weekend. How's that?
I'll be rooting for all the props I make. That's for sure. We got to pay for the tickets somehow. Hopefully gambling will take care of it.
There you go. Our buddy Marty from Alabama rolled Tide. die-hard Nashville Predators fan, and you talked NHL. I've been following your timeline. You're already deep into preseason. I love the dedication. I love the fire. I love everything behind it. So before we dig in, can you give Marty a little Nashville preview, what he should be looking for?
Well, first of all, I think it's pretty cool for Marty that he gets to see his team play over in Europe, and Roman Josi gets to play in front of some friends and family. That's been really good for them. Those games have been in the afternoon, so get to see a lot from them. Look, I think that they're going to be healthy this year. I think that they have a lot of depth this year, and I think that they're going to give young guys a lot more of a crack. But they just can't rely. You know what I always say, Jeff? I say with like countless teams, you can't rely on a couple guys to do all the scoring. And to me, that's the biggest problem with the Nashville Predators sometimes. If they can get some contributions from the bottom six, they'll be a good hockey club. And I truly believe that. They have good goaltending. They have a good defensive team. And I'll put it this way right now, since we're on the topic of that team. I've already bet, Jeff, game 2 of that back-to-back doubleheader against San Jose. Not game 1. I bet game 2. And I'm on the over 5.5 at -125. You can get 6 at some spots, but put it this way: you're gonna the two starting goaltenders are real talented. Let's not get crazy, I guess, but especially for Nashville. But you're gonna give me the second day ever of regular season hockey in Europe with these backup goaltenders, the same teams playing each other. The chemistry figured out. The rust is off. Let's be honest. First period, I wouldn't be shocked if that first period ended 0-0 or 1-0 in that game 1. I think we'll see more of exciting hockey. I think that with the power of film right now, with the power of going in, looking at a tablet, looking at all of your shifts, and getting to right your wrongs in game 2, to me, that equals an over. I think, especially early in the season. So I've actually already bet that myself, Jeff. I haven't even seen them play game 1 yet, and I've already bet game 2 over the total.
All right. As you said, we started talking 6-8 weeks ago, 2 months ago, however long it is. We were talking CFL. We got a little World Juniors in between. It's NHL time. To everyone watching and listening, the work that you've done leading up to this, you talked about potentially some futures. Give us your assessment, where you are already in your work for your NHL before the season starts, maybe some leans, maybe some tickets you've already punched.
You know, for me, I don't like to overreact to off-season acquisitions, off-season pickups, trade deadlines. I find that in a sport, compared to a sport like the NBA and basketball, you don't want to overreact too much because it takes a full team effort. In the NBA, one player really can change your roster. I'm not sure that's the same case for the NHL, but I do keep an eye out for some key moves. One team I'm looking at when I talk about that type of stuff, Jeff, look at the LA Kings picking up Kevin Fiala. I think a guy that's I wouldn't say, big time underrated, but might not be talked about enough based on the markets he's played in. And looking at the LA Kings, what I love about them is that they have a lot of good two-way players, right? They've got a lot of guys that might not be listed as superstar players, but guys that will take care of things on both ends of the ice. Of course, Drew Doughty, there's, all-star defenseman. It sounds like he's healthier than he's been in several years, had a great summer. And I think they've got a good young goaltender as well for them. I think it's a sneaky pick for them to finish near the top of that West. You can get, I think it's 98 points, something like that. Everyone's talking about the Oilers, Jeff, the Calgary Flames. Let's not forget about this Kings team because they have what I look for, a good mixture of young guys, veteran leadership. They've got a lot of guys that are willing to play defensive hockey and offensive hockey. And I look for that early in the season as well. I think that they're going to go over their point total, their season point total. And I think we talked about this already, but taking a look at your Boston Bruins. I mean, no Grzelcyk, no McAvoy, Marchand out to start the season off. I'm not feeling good about them whatsoever. I'm worried about their defensive core. Picking up Pavel Zacha, I'm not sure that's a huge pickup. Taylor Hall, what's he done really since he won the MVP for the New Jersey Devils? He hasn't really done too much. I'm on the under. I think it was 96.5 season points for them. Looking across the board, I think that Atlantic division is going to be an absolute bloodbath. You know, Ottawa got better. Detroit got better. I mean, all these bottom feeders got better. Montreal, they're not going to be very good, but they even got better. You know, Toronto's obviously up there. Tampa Bay is still rock solid. The Florida teams are both really good. That's going to be an absolute bloodbath. But the team that I faded last year, or wasn't as high on, that I think is ready to take that next step, are the New York Rangers. And the reason why I say that, one of the big reasons, is I say that I don't always make a big deal out of one pickup that a team makes. But to me, Vincent Trocheck is a very, very strong pickup for the New York Rangers, because he is a guy that, again, knows he can play top 6 minutes. He's a guy that takes care of things on both ends of the rink. He's a guy that can play along the boards, behind the net, score gritty goals, score nice goals, pass up to his teammates. And he really solidifies that top 6, because they were looking for that guy that was already established in the league, that's already done that, already been there in these big moments. And, you know, their defensive core, their blue line, I don't even know how they afford to pay all those guys. I mean, they've got so many solid players. As much as I love to, you know, talk smack about Jacob Trouba, because I feel like he's a little bit dirty, an outstanding player. He's now their captain. They've got so many great blue liners. And then, of course, Igor Shesterkin, their Vezina winning trophy goaltender. So when I look at the league this year, I think this year I'll probably will be playing more underdogs than I've ever played, Jeff. I'll be real. I'm not always an underdog player. If you gave me one single week of my results, I probably picked 2 or 3. I had good results when I did, but I was really, really selective with them. This year, it's going to be a very, very tight league, and I think that we're going to see a lot of those bottom feeders have improved. You know, so with season win totals and point totals, I don't know about you, but I mostly like going under. Mm-hmm. You know, because player injuries, whatever, a bad slump, whatever it might be. But there's some points where I like to look over a little bit, and that might be one of them. But how about this one? How about the Blackhawks at DraftKings and FanDuel right now to be the last place team? You can bet that one. The Blackhawks to finish last in the league. I think it's at like plus 250.
How the mighty have fallen. Jesus, I remember the glory years with them, and the battles that the Bruins had with them. And, you know, they talked about Colorado and what they actually did to get to where they were last year. And it was someone was talking about it the other day to me. They were gifted the fact that they didn't get the number 1 pick, and they get the number 3 pick, and they got was it Marker, right? At number 3 that slid to him.
Yeah. I can't believe he went there. Crazy.
But you know, as a local in Boston, we don't do last place well. And you know, for a Bruins fan, it's always been make the playoffs, get through the first round. You know, it's extra beer money, it's extra whatever. You know, the owners are happy. The city, for the most part, has that embedded in their mind right now. They can't compete with the Tampas, the Floridas right now. And so, as you said a few months ago, and everyone else is saying it as well right now, is we're not set up for a good year yet. They're like 6th or 7th in the market to win the cup. Their over is 96.5. One of the locals here is like, I ain't buying the banana in the tailpipe. We'll be just fine this year. So I'm kind of interested, because you and I have both said, you know, I am usually with my family at the day after Thanksgiving game, and we're already going to wave the white flag, we think. With that. The question I have for you, and this is more for the novices and the public, help us. We remember what we saw last year, the Carolinas, the Florida Panthers, the Tampa Bay Lightnings, the Colorado Avalanche. Now those numbers are like embedded, like I don't want to say they're inflated, but everyone expects them to be just as good, if not better. The teams that were there a year ago that took a step back, like the Islanders had a great run a year ago. Can you help us out and sift through the I call it the bullshit and the madness, and guide us in the right direction? Who is that team other than Colorado out in the West? Who, can we get our eyes off of Carolina, Florida? I mean, listen, they score touchdowns every night. And, the Tampa Bay Lightnings. Can you help us there?
Well, I want to go on record and say this, that I think we're going to see an overpriced Colorado team early on in the season. I do not trust their goaltending tandem. I don't. And people seem to think that Alexander Georgiev is a top solid goaltender, but that split that they have, to me, is not as impressive. And you take out Nazem Kadri, put him on the Flames. I mean, this is a guy that not only scores goals, but again, he brings that physical edge. He brings that defensive edge. He brings a lot of different things to a team that just doesn't go noticed. So I worry about that Colorado team. I think they're going to be a big time over team this year. I think they're not going to be able to be as solid defensively. And let's be honest here. I think Makar is a great player. I think his defensive ability is not talked about enough. He shut down McDavid single-handedly in that series. But him, Devon Toews, and a lot of the other guys get caught up, playing forward a little bit sometimes. And that can backfire on them a little bit. But look, I'm really high on Calgary. I really like this team. I like what they did in the offseason. I'm a huge fan of Jacob Markstrom, and I think that I think that Florida lost that trade against because they just assumed that Huberdeau and Weegar weren't going to sign. But I really like that trade for them. I think Huberdeau is going to slot in just fine. I think Matthew Tkachuk sometimes gets too caught up in the rough stuff and isn't worried about scoring goals. I don't think Tkachuk is going to pan out to be what Florida wants him to be. Although it might be a decent trade for them just because they were kind of a soft team. So maybe they need a player like that. But yeah, looking at the Western Division, like I mentioned, I think it's going to be a pretty tight one, but you look at some of these teams, and I mentioned a team like the LA Kings that, we always talk together about the markets and what we think they're going to react and what the public is going to be doing. Those teams in the West that are going to get all the action, they're going to get all the money. When you take a look at the division, even a team like the Anaheim Ducks, I think they're going to, be able to cash some underdog tickets this year. They've got a lot of good young players, lots of talent. Overall, Carolina, I've been riding them for a couple of years now, and they let me down, Jeff. They really have. They pick up Max Pacioretty. What happens? He gets injured in the offseason. Won't see him for a couple of months. There's going to be a lot of room for some of these teams. And, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a good year from the Pittsburgh Penguins this year, and this might be their last run. I'm being honest because, they signed back. The trio is back together. Malkin, Letang, Crosby. It's the longest running trio right now. But they're getting old. They are. And the game is changing. They've got Jake Gensel along with them and a couple other key guys. But, I really look at this league and I look at the standings from last year and I look up and down the rosters. And I think that this is going to be one of the tightest years in the NHL we see. Besides a team like the Coyotes or my Canadians, I feel like we're going to see it be really close. So as far as these win totals, I look at some of these top tier teams and I want to go under because it has to be a perfect year for them to go over these. It really does. What have you looked at any of these futures yet for Stanley Cup? I know you're really good with picking a couple different ones to ride out.
Well, I was going to ask you two teams, and I'm going to see if I can find it here on DraftKings before I'm interested in two teams, and I'm going to see if I can find the odds, or maybe you can find the odds for let me see here. DraftKings.
I'm interested, Jeff, to see this year what the Vegas Golden Knights look like. I really am, because They're a team that have been just very interesting since they even became a team. Let's be honest. Jack Eichel and Phil Kessel. Did you ever think you'd see that partnership?
No.
Jack Eichel and Phil Kessel on a line together.
Oh, don't do this to me. They just took it up. Give me 1 second, Andrew. And I was right where I wanted to be.
I think the Kraken are going to be an improved team this year. Matty Beniers, young player. They've got a lot of good young guys, a good defensive core. When they built that team, when they had their expansion draft, they built it from the back up. You know, they wanted to start with a good goaltender. They wanted to get good defensemen, good steady blue liners. The Kraken were a team that in certain situations I enjoyed betting against last year, but I feel like we could make some money betting on them this year as well. The St. Louis Blues, you know what, Jeff? They were very, very unhealthy last year. They were injured quite a bit. They could be a team to look for.
So the two teams that I was going to give you was the Blues and the Stars. Okay. Now, just an eye test here. Looking at Colorado plus 380, Florida at 900, the Leafs that we haven't talked about at 700, Calgary 1500, Lightning 1200, Oilers 1500. You already talked about the Rangers. You already talked about the Penguins. Here's where I would initially run to the window, because looking at these teams and looking at the number that's standing, the bells are ringing. I got the little fuzzies in my stomach right now. The Minnesota Wild plus 1,700. Why are they plus 1,700?
I know, it's a great number. It's a great number. I worry about their
that I don't know.
Inconsistency with them, maybe. You know, they have depth scoring one night and then it's gone for a couple days, you know. But that number is really, really good. That number is almost hard to pass up there.
I mean, because you look at it, okay, and you got your Rangers and your Penguins at plus 2,000, the Bruins at 2,500, Vegas at 2,500, the Kings and the Predators at 3,500. And again, you go up top, the Avs at plus 380, the Leafs at 700, Florida and Carolina. It looks like it's out of place. Like they're not giving you any gifts here.
No, they're not. What are you seeing right now on Calgary? Because I feel like even that number has been a little bit too
1,500.
Yeah, like that's kind of shocking to me. Is that surprising to you at all, or am I overreacting to the Huberdeau and Kadri pickup? Because we have to tip our hats to Jim Treliving and what he did, because it's crazy that in a week span, people said to him, how do you let these guys walk? How do they do that? How does Gaudreau leave? And they, shame the team. And he goes out and picks up Kadri and Huberdeau and Uyghur. That's pretty impressive.
No doubt. I was in Vegas in March at the Circa with the mayor himself. And we were getting ready for the end of the regular season and the playoffs. Colorado was the favorite. Florida was the second favorite. And the Flames were the third favorite. And now, so I look at them at plus 1,500, and they had a great season. And you talked about the additions. I just can't get over why the Wild are only $200 more. Am I like it? I guess the way I'm seeing this is, shouldn't the Wild be in the Vegas night and the Bruins in that 2,500? Or the Rangers in Pittsburgh in the 2000?
Yeah, I don't know what to make of that team, just because to be honest with you, I don't see any type of profile I can create of them, because I see a different team out of them every quarter of a year. Every month or two, they're a different club. Last year they played the Blues round one, right? Mm-hmm. And the Blues, the Wild seemed to be actually a public pick.
They were,
because you look at the Blues and their health going into that series. I mean, they weren't a healthy team all year. I just love to look at teams that, had those superstars perform, but what they're like when they don't have that. And that's why I really, really like the St. Louis Blues. Like if I'm looking at right now making a 4-pack of futures, I'm probably going 2 in the West, Blues, Flames. And then in the East, I'm looking at Rangers. Hold on, let me take a look at the odd sheet here. I want to get a juicy one for the second one. But like, see, like Rangers to me are a good one because I feel like that number will start to drop big time, like pretty fast, if they start to really tear it up. Rangers, and who's going to be my second one? I think you take a look at the Eastern Conference. You know, part of me wants to throw an absolute curveball at you and say a team like Ottawa or something like that, just to absolutely just because everybody's high on them, and I'm not buying into all the hype like everybody is as much, but they did upgrade quite a bit, and they're going to be able to score goals. That would just be such a huge, monstrous number.
They're at plus 5,500 at DraftKings, right above them at plus 4,500. Thoughts on a bounce back year from the Islanders?
I don't like the Islanders. It's weird. I have no connection to the Islanders. I have never been a fan of them or whatsoever. For some reason, Jeff, I feel bad for them. I feel sorry for them. I don't know why. You know, their GM refuses to go out and pick up free agents. They don't seem to be a landing spot for guys in the off season. They're not aggressive enough. It's the definition of insanity. You know, they're trying to continuously do the exact same process, and they're always a good regular season team against mediocre offensive clubs at home. They're always going to win those 2-1 games, 1-0 games, 3-1 games. I will say though, remember last year, what was it? 19 games they started off on the road. Is that what it was? Something like that.
Crazy, yeah. What do they got? Like the circus or something in town?
Yeah. You know, they had COVID, they're building a new arena, they had so much stuff going on. They should get off to a way better start, you know. But it honestly makes me so excited talking about this with you and breaking this down on air, because you look at some of these teams and, you know, it's funny because when you look at certain teams going into a season, some people like to say, like, for example, in the NFL, the Packers and Bears are two teams that I had made up in my mind already. I'm going to be playing unders with them quite a bit. And it's been pretty successful so far. And in the NHL, I do that as well. And some could argue, well, you can't plan a total ahead of time. Well, you just kind of can identify what you think each team is going to be, right? I bet you, if I could make a bet on this, I think Ottawa will lead the league in sevens being their totals, because they can just score, but their defense is like Swiss cheese. So they're just, everyone's going to walk by them and score goals, but they're going to put up 4 or 5, you know. And I've been seeing on Twitter, you do quite a bit of team totals with baseball. This might be a year for me, Jeff, where I really jump into the team totals in the NHL. And that's one thing I've really been exploring and thinking about quite a bit. Just taking away the other team, just taking the other team out of the picture. You know, how have you enjoyed doing that with baseball?
I think it's a lot easier than trying to worry about the starting pitcher. How many innings is he going to go? The back end, the bridges. You know, I like to use the road team, especially on team totals, because I'm guaranteed 27 outs and nine innings. It worked very, very well. The last 2 days we've used the hangover theory, and that's worked real good. We had Verlander first 5 last night because the Phillies had clinched. And then the night before, we actually had the Phillies for the clinch. So, it's just like changing on the fly, like everyone else does here. And what's working, what's not working. You know, we'll be having our weekly talks, and you're hot as a firecracker on first period overs. first periods. Then next thing you know, you're on a tear on, props, shots on goal. I mean, no one changes on the fly better than you. I'm telling you.
I appreciate it. Well, I try to find what's working, and then stick to it. That's really my thing is, I don't want to describe it as giving up on something I'm doing, but if totals aren't working for it right now, I'm going to slow down on them. If sides aren't working, and in the playoffs, I was doing a lot better with first period plays. And I couldn't explain why. I had a good read on those, and that's what I was doing. So that's kind of where I look at. But team totals, I think, will be really interesting this year. You take a look at a team with the New Jersey Devils. They're 22-1 to win the Eastern Conference. And you take a look at some divisions here. They're 16-1 to win the Metro. And obviously that contains the Rangers, even the Blue Jackets, who should be dangerous. The Hurricanes are plus 180. To me, I think it's absolutely ridiculous that the Hurricanes are plus 180 to win that division. And this is coming from a guy that was like all hands on deck on the Hurricanes last year.
What's that tell you?
It tells me that everybody likes them too.
But it was like I was sitting at the Bellagio, and 5 people came up to me and says they're printing money, Jeff, because the Brewers are going to win the NL Central with their eyes closed. No one can stop that front end pitching. No one can got a better back end. Yada yada yada. And for the last 6 to 8 weeks, I kept telling everyone the Cardinals are winning this division. This Cardinals winning the division, and that's the same thing. Think about it this way. You're at Circa, you're getting ready for the hockey, and in comes a busload of hockey fans ready to bet futures. And they're saying to Jeffrey Benson, you're giving me plus 180 on these guys to win the division?
Yeah.
It's like, DiCaprio with the money coupons. They're like just firing. They're not winning the division.
No. And the Max Pacioretty pickup, I think, is really good. But let's put it this way. Other teams got better a hell of a lot more than they did in the offseason, and yet their odds went up as far as, they're favorites, and the other guys moved backwards. And that doesn't make sense whatsoever. I know some people that are very, very high on the New Jersey Devils this year, Jeff. Talked to a few other handicappers. And it's just the same thing I talked about kind of with the Islanders, I guess. But number one, how many first-round picks have they stocked up on right now? I think that nobody's really noticed this. It's kind of reminds me of the Leafs when I was growing up. This is a team that has 4 or 5 top 10 picks that are all going to be in their early 20s. Some of them aren't even going to be in their 20s yet. And you've got some older players as well, a good goaltender that wasn't healthy all year last year. And again, this year, people are going to be sleeping on them because they were nothing last year. They were an absolute joke. They were throwing out third string, 4th string pylon goaltenders, and everybody was scoring 5 or 6 on them. If you and I were a successful team total bettors in hockey, we should have been betting against the Devils every night last year, but this is a team as well to look at in that division. And that's why I'm saying it's going to be a lot more competitive because, and you know what? I'm a basketball guy. I love playing the game. If I wanted to pick a sport to play, I love basketball, but this is why I enjoy hockey and the off season and the way things work more. The worst teams got better in the off season last year or this past summer. The better teams, I don't think all of them got better. And you don't see that in every sport, Jeff. You really don't. Look at the teams. If you go look right now, top 5 biggest payrolls for MLB, and look how those teams are doing, right? How are they spending their money? They're winning for a reason. So I love the fact that Detroit is building something right now. I think that Patrick Kane and Jonathan Toews, I think one, if not both of them, are gone by January, February. I'm just hoping to see them by November at the Garden.
We'll close hockey with this. We have to just spend a couple seconds with this. It's just the same old, same old, same old. At plus 700, the Toronto Maple Leafs, I mean, they got more firepower than any team in the league. And we just know it's defense and goaltending. They're currently the second favorite behind the Avs, and the Panthers are at 900 and the Canes are at 1100. Is it just the same old story, or can they finally break through?
Well, I really think that Kyle Dubas is going to make a splash this year, whether it's having to give up Nylander or somebody, or whether it's freeing up cap and just, there's been talks about Patty Kane to them, but there would have to be so much retained with the Blackhawks, and there's all kinds of stuff that goes on to it. But I don't think this club right now can go far in the playoffs, because I just don't think they have enough two-way guys. And I don't think that they're a playoff style team. It's why I always bet on Carolina in the playoffs, which seems like more than I do during the regular season, because they're built for it. And that's why I like the New York Rangers even more this year, because they seem to have that perfect mix. I mean, let's be honest, is Capo Caco going into a corner? No. Is Nylander? No. But the Rangers have a bunch of other guys like Chris Kreider. He's a guy that's going to be the leader on that team, probably score the most goals for them, one of the most. And he's not afraid to get chippy, not afraid to be aggressive. I really like, I like doing this show before the season with you, because I'm kind of putting stuff out there, and then we can come back and find these clips. I think Kyle Dubas makes a splash this year. And if he doesn't, I think he's gone, because I think he's failed the team. If they don't get past the first round this upcoming season, he's gone. And there's no doubt about it. I would bet minus 130 on that right now. Probably more than that, because he has to, you cannot continue. You have to either go all in or not, because let's be honest, they've drafted well and they've traded some guys, but they paid 4 guys a lot of money, and they haven't been able to build around him. And then Jack Campbell gets blamed when their defense sucks. Jack Campbell made a couple bad plays, but you know what? That game they lost to Tampa Bay in the first round, the game 7, they scored 1 goal. Austin Matthews was scoring a goal a game in the regular season, right? And that's really the problem to me with that team. But I got to say really quick, though, so it doesn't sound like I'm just completely hating on the Leafs. That guy Robertson looks really, really good. He looks dangerous in the preseason. He looks comfortable, ready to take that next step. I'd be curious how much he plays, in the pros this year.
And it's funny you brought up that the playoffs, and I remember like it was yesterday, because I, of course, I believe in the opening numbers. I believe in trusting them. And Toronto opened up minus 130 against the Lightning, and I'm like, yes, they're finally gonna get through. They're getting through. And here we are sitting at game 7, and I'm just shaking my head. The banana in the tailpipe, not once but twice. I went against Tampa in the first round and the second round, and we won't even bring up what they did to Florida. I mean, that was an embarrassment.
Well, and I think that has to have something to do with picking up Matthew Tkachuk. The more and more and more I think about it, the more I realize that maybe they don't need a player like Huberdeau. You know who needs a player like Matthew Tkachuk? The Leafs. They could use a player like that, because he's gritty, but I don't think they'll maybe. It's so cool, because I'm not saying Kadri and Tkachuk are the same kind of player, but they both they play on the line, right? So you look at a team like the Leafs, and I will say though, those guys are young, right? I have to say that I want to make sure I mention that. I mean, sure, there's been heartbreak, sure, but Tampa Bay, to me, I think the Leafs probably would have beat any other team in the East in that round. I mean, they played a really, really, really good series, and those guys are going to learn from it. They're going to learn from their experiences. I'm curious to see some of the line pairings that Sheldon Keefe decides to go with for this year, whether he wants to stack one line again, or if he wants to continuously spread the lineup out, if he wants to keep Tavares and Nylander together. I've heard rumors that Justin Hall might not be a Leaf within the next couple of weeks. So it's crazy because there's actually a game, Jeff. This is kind of random now, but there's these games are the last two preseason games, or at least the second last one. Usually, you get to see the full lineup, and there's actually a game taking place like an hour or two from my house. It's the here in Canada we have it's called like a Hockeyville. Pretty much what they do is you can go online and vote for all kinds of small communities, and you pretty much vote to upgrade their rink. And so a company will upgrade their rink. Like it's like a community type thing, like a TV thing. It's called Craft Hockeyville. And anyway, so that town won, and it's the Canadians versus the Senators, and they're both announced already. They're playing their full lineups, and it's sold out. I didn't even know what was going on until like yesterday, so I can't go. But it's really cool to see that these teams, really, if you're actually interested in learning from these teams and you haven't been betting the preseason, this is actually when you want to start to pay attention for anybody out there looking, because the Canadians, who, of course, as you know, I follow as a fan, they haven't played their full season lineup yet once. They have played completely different lineups, defensive pairings, forward groups, all season, all preseason long. So that's one thing interesting to look at. Like tonight, little pick for everybody out there. I like the Winnipeg Jets versus the Calgary Flames in the preseason action. I haven't been on your show, so I haven't even been able to give out any preseason picks. But the Winnipeg Jets, I locked in at -114. They're playing the Flames. One of my number one rules for preseason is betting at home. And secondly, you want to bet around 1 to 2 o'clock on that team you're looking at, especially if you can see that the other team hasn't really confirmed their lineup. I follow pretty much beat writers from most teams, and then you see them tweeting out the lineups in the morning skate and that kind of stuff. And it's nice to see some of these teams are finally throwing out, 80, 85% of their actual lineup.
We'll be talking for days upon days and weeks upon weeks, months upon months, and I can't wait. Hockey is back. You're going to be back here in November, where I hope to get up to Boston, obviously. I'm not going to let you off this quick. I know you have other things, but we got to talk some CFL here. It's been a couple weeks. We haven't talked about it. Give us what has transpired in the last couple weeks standing-wise, and we'll go over the board quickly for you.
Really quick, Jeff, I just want to say that BC, Nathan Rourke injury has impacted the BC Lions quite a bit. Last week, it didn't seem to affect them, but it certainly has made the team a complete different team. Just wanted to make that mention. They're currently sitting at 10-4. Winnipeg continues to dominate the league. Somehow Hamilton upset them a few weeks ago, but they're 13-2 atop of there. But the East Division, this is where you want if you I know college football is going on, NFL, but if you want to watch some games this weekend, Jeff, if you're around, anybody watching, check out the East games in the CFL, because those games are going to mean something. And one interesting game we have this week is the Riders and Argos game that we'll get into in a short time. But looking at the East right now, I've got first place Argos 8-6, second place Alouettes 7-7. And look at this drop off. Tiger Cats 4-10, Red Blacks 3-11. So we might actually see the Tiger Cats make the playoffs with a record like that and get absolutely destroyed. Their quarterback play has been horrible. Their offensive line's been super rough. It's been really unreliable. Oh yeah, did I forget to mention the Red Blacks just fired their coach, which was really funny because at the start of the year, I said to you that they pretty much got rid of all of their players and kept their coaching staff. And now they've removed all their coaching staff and, they're keeping the players. So that's going to be interesting to see. This is going to be the third straight year that they're the last place team in the CFL, the Ottawa Red Blacks. As for the BC Lions, they've clinched the playoffs for the first time in, I think, 4 or 5 years. Especially at this number 2 spot. The Elks, they stopped covering point spreads last week. It was my first bad week in the CFL in a while. I took 2 dogs. They're both like somewhat around, getting a touchdown. Both of them got blown out. So that wasn't nice, but we'll try and bounce back. It's still been a great season. I'm sitting at around 60% on the season, which I don't think I can do that in any other sport. With CFL, I really just pick my spots. But the East right now is where you want to have your eyes on for this weekend. I'll be honest with you, Jeff. I don't have all my picks locked in and solidified, but we'll run the gauntlet. I do have 1 or 2 picks for you.
All right, we'll just run them right through. Rough Riders are at Hamilton on Friday at 7:30. Hamilton -1.5, under over 49 and a hook. A money line of Hamilton -120, or the Rough Riders +100.
This is the thing. The donut box, as they call it, the home field for Hamilton, has always been a really good spot for them to play. It's where they've won their handful of games, but it hasn't been as reliable this year. They could sell out that crowd all they want. They could have a great performance. Their coach could, give them all the right things to do. I don't think they're capable of beating Saskatchewan. And here's the reason why. Saskatchewan, if you look at their schedule and their injuries and what they've dealt with, it will absolutely make the betting public put their blinders on. The West Division is way, way better than the East. And I just told you how bad the record is for Hamilton. You look at who Saskatchewan's played recently. Winnipeg. I think BC was in there. It's you know what I'm getting at, Jeff. It's just life has been a lot more difficult for Saskatchewan recently. What's interesting though is it's kind of funny. I just mentioned this a few minutes ago, but Hamilton actually upset Winnipeg. So I guess you can kind of factor that in, but a broken clock is right twice a day. I think that this is a really good Saskatchewan spot. I get it. They're traveling from Western Canada over to the East in Hamilton, but I'm liking the Saskatchewan Roughriders this week. They're a much better team. This line doesn't make any sense. And sometimes when the line doesn't make any sense in other sports like the NFL, I stay away. But in the CFL, I think that I have a good read on this league, and I think that it doesn't make sense that we're getting a good number like this on a team to hang around. So I like the Riders to get it done in the East Coast.
I'm going to steal that. Broken clock is right once a day. I like that one. Saturday, 4:00, BC at Toronto. Toronto Argonauts -1.5, under over 48 and a hook. Again, Toronto -120. You can get BC +100.
I haven't made my mind up on this game yet, Jeff. Honestly, I'm leaning towards the home team here. Like I mentioned, BC and the West Division is as far as superior, but I think Toronto has a lot more to play for. I think they want to end the season on a really strong note. I think they have a lot more wrongs they want to right. I have a lot of articles I'm literally planning on reading after I'm done with this with you, but it's listed, close to a pick 'em, depending on where you look. We're seeing -1, +1 pick. I think this game could see points is kind of where I'm looking. The Argos defense is at the start of the year, I thought would be their bright spot, but it really hasn't been at all. They've actually had to put up points to win games, and BC, against teams like in the East, really, they've been able to get it together. So it's difficult for them not having, their star quarterback now, but they do have a lot of weapons. And I feel like that's where I'd look, especially in a big game like this, expecting points, seeing coaches, going forward on third and not, settling for field goals. You might think that's a bad thing for overs in the CFL, but I like it. Sometimes in the NFL, when I want points for my over, I'm like, take the field goal, take the points. I don't care. But in the CFL, go for it. It'll make a difference long term. And I think that's where I'd look in this game is potentially either the home team or the over. But I'm still waiting. Lions are off a pretty good victory. Like I said, I faded them last week. Didn't go really well on that one, but I think this game might mean more to the Argos.
Saturday, 7:00. Once my Edmonton Elks at the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Winnipeg -13 and a hook, under over a 50.5. Moneyline, Winnipeg minus 645. You can grab the Elks plus 480. I think if they added a zero to it, plus 4,800, people still wouldn't get it. They can't wait to get the season over with. As you said, the Blue Bombers have just been an amazing story. And I go back 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks ago when you kept talking about Winnipeg. They were just a cash cow.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? The fact of the matter is I would love to be able to tell you, let's jump on the Elks one more time. Let's try and make some money with it. But I can't, they're injured. They're not in good form. They're not putting good drives forward. And to be real with you, a bad performance from Winnipeg could still somehow get them a cover in this game, which is crazy to say because the point spread's so big. This is where I'm going here. Under. The number I think has gone down a little bit, but I feel like that's a really rock solid play. It's a great ground game for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They don't want to get injured. They don't want to mess up their season, Jeff. They're going to sail and coast to a victory, and they might do it by still covering the point spread. I don't want to worry about that. Let's take the under together.
All right, I'm in on that one for sure. Lastly, Monday, October 10th, Ottawa at Montreal. Montreal minus 7, under over 48 and a hook. A money line of Montreal minus 295. You can get the Red Blacks at plus 245 on DraftKings.
Yeah, if you believe in the coach just got fired theory, you might be looking at the Red Blacks here in this game. I'm just not sure if the Red Blacks are the team to do it with. But the fact of the matter is, the Alouettes have been in good form lately. They're playing good football. A lot of people have been really high on them. I think that they're moving up in power rankings, and like I said, the East is really interesting this week because somebody, unless it's a crossover team from the West, has to play a West team in the Grey Cup. Somebody's got to do it, and I've got futures locked in on Toronto, but I'd feel a hell of a lot better if I had Montreal instead of Toronto right now. The question is, do I want to lay it right now with them? And I'm not 100% excited for it. I'll put it this way. Anybody out there looking to bet this game, you're bored on a Monday. It's an afternoon game. It is Canadian Thanksgiving this weekend, if anybody is wondering. But I would look towards potentially playing the first half for the Alouettes. Okay. I could see this game having backdoor cover written all over it. First half might be the look here, Jeff.
The scroller has been going the whole time. You can follow Andrew at McInnis Picks at Wager Talk at Sports Mayflower. You can jump on over to YouTube at Mayflower Sports. Subscribe. It's free. Tell a friend. Tell another friend. If you're not following him, guys, you guys are clueless at this point. Jump on to Twitter. Jump onto his TikTok page, his YouTube page. Subscribe away. And as we close here, obviously, we've had a couple weeks off. We're just getting started in the NHL. That was an amazing 45 minutes there of NHL talk. Got a ton of notes that now I'm going to have to go back and replay this tape and see what I missed. But with that said, as we always close, the stage is yours, Andrew. Tell them where they can find you, what you got going on this weekend, and happy Thanksgiving on Monday as well.
Thank you very much. Always a great time spent with some family and watching football here, Canadian football edition. Look, I'm really excited for this NHL season. I just want to mention, if anybody wants all my plays, this is the time to do it for the entire season. If you want to jump on for the full season, if not, you can, obviously Jeff has a lot of great picks every time. I know you're cashing future tickets, but it feels like every single year we're going to be talking together. I'm going to start doing a show myself. Jeff has his show. But join me for my all access for NHL. Look, I'm dishing out preseason winners already. We're sending out daily, what it feels like season win point totals, future bets, playoff is all included. So it's listed at $5.99 right now. It's usually $6.99. So if anybody wants to grab that, check it out over at Wager Talk. And that's really it for me. CFL this weekend, UFC's been going pretty well. That's off this weekend. NFL, I'm about as low volume as you can get as far as sides, totals, props. You can always count on me for a few props. But, hey, isn't everybody betting props these days? But things are going pretty good, and it's great to see you, Jeff.
Great to see you as always. We'll be back at it next Wednesday, of course. We'll be talking and chatting throughout the week here. It's good to get back in the saddle. Obviously won't harass you on Monday. You got to make sure you got 2 hands available for both drumsticks, and you can dig in there. So for myself, Jeff Dawson at EC Sports Invest, from Andrew McInnis at McInnis Picks, we wish everyone a blessed day. Always invest and wager responsibly. If you do have a problem, pick up the phone. There's an 800 number. Ask for help, please. Why? Myself and Andrew care. We want to see you here today, tomorrow, next week, next month, through 2022 and beyond. Have a day, gents. MLB Playoffs starts on Friday, boys. And hey,
go Jays, go.
Go Jays, go. I was just going to say. Minus 180. That's a big price. I guarantee you those Mariners will be the series dog that everyone's playing. But go Jays, go. So enjoy that, will you?
I will.